Welcome back to the Techno Communism program. I had someone comment on the last show that I did when I uploaded to YouTube, that is, and I appreciate the comment. I was going to respond to the comment. I know uh, this person a little bit, don't really actually know them at all, but have been connected to them or known of them for a few years. And so I was hesitant to respond. Um, if I were to look at um, their list of acquaintances on some social media site or mutual acquaintances, I might see that some of those people were people who were probably pretty favorably inclined to techno socialism, and a lot of those people are people who would more fall on the side of private wealth. Very few of those people would say so. Um, but the fact remains that this planet is dying. Um, Capitalism's climate apocalypse, that's down to human mistakes that are continuing to be made. And those people who are willing to fight for a humane and sustainable economic system in defiance of elitist institutions and private wealth are people who are on the right side of history. The people who um, are not willing to do that and not in a position to do that. You can't very well be in a position to do that if you don't have a strong understanding of revolutionary thought. You would say, "Oh, I'm an anti-establishment person," but in every word and deed, in practice, you would be fucking up. So that would describe a certain number of people that this a person knows. So I expected this question was basically this: how do we get to um, a post-monetary world? And I expected that the conversation. This person is someone you would call a techie, a tech-minded person, a futurist, that sort of thing. And so I expected the conversation would go a little bit something like this. Well, how do we get to a post-monetary world? And I would describe institutions of a socialistic kind, and they would kind of roll out some CIA talking points, saying, well, socialism never works, and then they would immediately kind of withdraw from the conversation, sort of smugly thinking like, oh, this tanky just doesn't understand economics at all. So let me explain to you, everyone, what is the problem with this kind of thing that's extremely commonplace, almost ubiquitous in the West, and perhaps some ideas on how to combat it. So the problem of removing and replacing institutions of private wealth is not really the issue. So in 1917, prior to 1917, there was a country called Russia, and in 1917 they had successful revolution, and the Russian people had just a few years before transitioned from serfdom across the entire country, something very much like the chattel slavery of the United States in certain respects. And so it's fair to say that in 1917 this was a group of people who, a lot of them were peasants. They were wearing sackcloth, walking around with a potato in one pocket, an onion in the other pocket. Oh, you want a potato? You want an onion? It's not to cast aspersion on the provincial lifestyle, but fast forward just a few short decades. In 1917, this country established public health service, housing authority, jobs programs at the will of those people, and doubled the life expectancy in those short decades. And so suddenly you did not have a country full of peasants. You had a country full of engineers and scientists, more serious people, people reaping the benefits of socialistic institutions. This was 1917. And you say, oh, that country doesn't exist anymore, Ben. They must have really fucked up. No, they didn't. Because what else happened in 1917? The Soviet Union signs its new constitution describing all of these things. The United States, the anti-communist demon of history, and the fascist Western countries with which it most frequently collaborates, said this is not acceptable. We can't have socialist countries. People will start to get ideas. And they immediately, in 1918, invaded that country, causing a great number of deaths. They invaded Russia. They said we just have to kill this thing before anybody starts getting any ideas. It shouldn't have even happened. There was a war going on. If there hadn't been a war going on, we never would have let this happen. We got to stop it now. And that invasion didn't last that long. It killed a lot of people. It wasn't successful. But that basic modus operandi of beating the shit out of socialist countries, sabotaging them at every turn, was what happened for the next 6.5 decades until the Soviet Union was illegally disbanded. That's sabotage. If somebody sabotages something, you don't say, oh, that machine didn't work. The problem was a machine. You say that machine was sabotaged. And so this is, so when somebody says, how do you get to a post-monetary scenario, this has been well understood that you could have a planned economy that would work if it wasn't sabotaged by elitists for 100 fucking years. So the question then of how do you get to post-monetary economy is not how do you make these institutions work? How could we possibly live without this almost wholly superfluous economy of the West, where a little of real value is provided, the things that are of real value, the things that, like I described, a housing authority, a public health service, utilities, jobs programs, education, those things can be centrally planned with relative ease, even 100 years ago. And the things that the fascistic capitalists provide to people falls more in the category of bread and circuses, bells and whistles, things designed to distract you from the fact that you are a wage slave, effectively. Distract you from the fact that you have a public health monstrosity for profit death care that kills 100,000 people a year in this country. All of these things, if these elitist institutions, this is in response to ongoing series, I guess, about a United Earth Directorate, where I describe such a centrally planned entity that revolves around hybrid human superintelligence, a real prospect in the years to come, arguably something that could be without this very same essential sabotage and manipulation, could be easily implemented now. So you can imagine that you live in a city that's run by something like the United Earth Directorate, and you have housing as a guarantee to everyone at every age, and a public health service. It's not only at the standards of those of socialist countries today, but also able to use a powerful new emerging biomedicine and advanced technology to effectively treat aging as a disease, so that ailment and aging are things of the past. This is also a very real prospect in the years to come, and this is something these futurist types, whether they're on the right or wrong side of history, most generally do really genuinely want. But as I said, doesn't really matter what you say you want if your efforts are counterproductive. Siding with private wealth is indeed the most counterproductive things that these people will do, almost all of them. But so imagine that you're living in this city that has a public health service, it has these utilities and education and housing authority, and then you say, well, what are these people doing in terms of the market economy? Well, mostly what they're doing is pursuing more righteous ends, right? They're not wage slaves. They don't need bread and circuses to entertain them. They have education of a kind that they can pursue greater purposes, and that's what they would do. So, uh, what is that market? Of course, there's still um, uh, other things going on. Some of them might well become entertainers and such. Maybe not. It might not be the highest of aspirations as it is in this fascistic West, but many of them would. It would be a different kind of thing. But so when you ask the question, how do we get to a post-monetary world, and you're not really asking it from the perspective of a Marxist-Leninist or even entertaining these very clear and refined over many decades ideas that would allow you to answer to those questions. You're asking questions in bad faith. So then the question becomes, how do you transition to this post-monetary world if the institutions themselves could easily be maintained in the absence of private wealth? Well, the answer to that question is you have to build something more powerful than the saboteurs. You have to build something more powerful than the elitist institutions and cultural properties that undermine this. Which is why I focus so much on this idea of things along the lines of highly refined digital participation, like that described in the United Earth Directorate. Why I would describe things like bringing humanity together to common purpose using advanced technology. Why I would describe things like artificial general intelligence being used properly to lead to human augmentation, effective superintelligence, ultimately hive mind collectivist type effects. In discussing the United Earth Directorate, the idea was to describe something that had certain aspects of the hive mind collective without radically changing the human experience or putting people out by the existence of that. So I described this digital doppelganger, that is something like a clone of your personality that exists in this AI substrate, and that clone is able to interact to a great deal, a lot more than you are, with this this techno communist superstructure, namely the United Earth Directorate. So the answer to the question of how do we get to post-monetary world is that's not that hard. We have to destroy fascistic institutions and capitalism, particularly the United States, which is been the ringleader of all of this, basically for as long as it's been going on, at least in the era of nation states, and the United States military-industrial complex is the world's worst polluter. But of course, it's far worse than that, because they also protect all of the other super polluting corporations. If you do anything to defy those corporations or private wealth in any way, in any corner of the world, the United States will attack you. And it might not always be a full frontal assault involving bombs. Often it is. It might be it's other things like using the neo-colonial power of the International Monetary Fund to make it such that you cannot have more socialistic institutions and determine your own economic affairs in your own country, and 100 other dirty tricks like this. Um, and so people who don't acknowledge any of this, or don't acknowledge the possibility of things like a planned economy as a realistic prospect, they're not serious people. And I don't know that this person is that. I don't know them well, and maybe when they came on my radar, I was less that person than I am today. So perhaps there's a chance that they've evolved as well. It's very difficult to say, but I do know that tech geeks, techies, techno optimists, almost to a man, are people who are not trying to build a true revolutionary set of ideas, are not exploring revolutionary theory. They are mostly repeating various CIA talking point kinds of things, State Department friendly, status quo, and empire friendly fragments of worldview. And a lot of these people have a good deal of technical knowledge in some area, at least the ones that would be public facing tech personalities often do. But so you would say, oh, they have this one failing of being kind of on the side of neoliberalism rather than socialism, but they're intelligent people, so perhaps I can learn something from them. But I doubt, I question whether that is an accurate description to call these people intelligent. If you're on the side of the people killing the planet, you're on the side of the extinction of our species, I think that's the very, very least intelligent sort of person that you could possibly be. Being just a drunken, useless lout would be a more intelligent choice. So you can say that there's something complicated going on in their minds, as perhaps it relates to their expertise in some discipline or other, more so. But I don't think, in terms of their worldview, that can really be described as intelligence. And there's very, very, very few technophiles, tech bro type people who don't fit that description. That's why I fastidiously avoid these kind of people now, because in trying to work with them, I realize that they're utterly fucking worthless. And so I try to talk to people who are serious about changing the world, at least able to entertain the possibility that humanity could come together to stop this grand ecocide, this grand genocide, capitalism's climate apocalypse, and those people generally are not technophiles and tech obsessives. Then it's incumbent upon people like myself, I think, to try to impress upon them that advanced computing and emerging technology are the most powerful tools that have ever existed, and they could be tools for revolutionary change that would save this planet. Right now, they're more tools for building an incipient techno-fascism. They're being used mostly by the people who are killing the planet, and they have these lines of thought that are fallacious, that say that if we continue to let them grow this power, that they will stop killing the planet and start doing the right thing, or similarly that they will stop creating greater inequality, which is much the same problem, and there will be a great trickle-down economics, which is mostly, essentially, the role of the techno-optimist is to rebrand and this trickle-down economics by throwing in some science fiction jazz into the gumbo, and that's there's no more worthless human beings really than transhumanists and and techno-optimist types. Um, um, if you come across these people, I just say that you should just block them on social media, unless you know them to be people who would, um, in when it comes down to it, be willing to fight for a humane and sustainable economic system. If you come across them in real life, kick them in the stomach as hard as you can. And it might impress upon them that you don't want to listen to a bunch of neoliberal trickle-down economics bullshit and this kind of chicanery.